You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Handsome Air and Airport. It's the start of a new decade in terms of episodes. It's episode 170 of Keep Canada Weird. Before we celebrate this milestone, let me ask you how you're doing over there.
Good. What makes it the start of a new decade? Is that what you said?
Yeah, decade's like every 10, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 10 years. This is it's a zero at the end, like 170, episode 170.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
How are you doing over there?
I'm doing good. I'm very warm. It's, it was a heat warning today, so I am roasting still.
Yeah, we had the same crap here in Halifax. It was like close to 30 degrees, humid as all hell. I think it even rained this morning. So just one of those days. I'm so thankful that I have air conditioning in my house, because at one point I did have to leave my house. And as I opened my front door, it felt like an invisible, wet, hot, steaming blanket was just draped over me.
Yeah. I don't have air conditioning, so I'm just going au natural, raw dogging it over here with just my flesh and the elements.
It's only downhill from here over the next 2 months. We're going to survive it, though. We're going to get through it together. And the way we'll distract ourselves is by keeping Canada weird. And the way we'll keep ourselves cool is with cold, refreshing, special drinks. You got one over there?
I think all drinks are special. It's a drink I had recently. It's not white wine.
Good.
But it is the drink that I had the episode before last week's episode, because I still have a half a case of it in my kitchen.
Okay.
And it's the A&W Zero Sugar root beer.
Nice. I love those. I'm drinking the devil's juice. I'm drinking a tea from Tim Hortons. I guess it's not cold and refreshing. It's warm and kind of invigorating. But I'm drinking this Tim Hortons drink not to support this evil franchise, but as a segue to our first story of the night. When Tim Hortons is in the news, we're generally going to cover it, and they're in the news for a very Keep Canada Weird reason. Do you remember back in episode 111 of Keep Canada Weird, we recorded that in April of 2024, we discussed the Tim Hortons Roll Up the Rim campaign error that led to 500,000 participants receiving emails telling them that they had won a boat worth $64-ish thousand. You remember this?
Oh, and I was like, no way!
Inboxes across the country filled up an emailed recap of what Tim's customers had won during the Roll Up the Rim promotion. But many were surprised when the email congratulated them for having won a $60,000 boat.
I phoned my mom, I phoned my husband, my kids, and friends, and I'm so, I won a boat!
Those emails went out Wednesday afternoon and were corrected a few hours later, but not before the would-be winners had told their friends and family about the prize.
Just from the range of emotion from being up here to down here within an hour it was soul-crushing.
Tim Hortons blames technical errors and said customers who had won prizes would have been told immediately, not in a recap email. It's not clear how many people are affected, but many are still frustrated.
I do remember this, yeah. The now you see it, now you don't card trick from Tim Hortons.
That's right. A lot of people thought that was going to be the end of it, but it turns out, thanks to Quebec's tough consumer protection laws, Tim Hortons may end up on the hook for these boats.
Why is this only going forward in Quebec?
Well, according to a Superior Court judge saying that this case is particular only to Quebec because they have got stronger consumer protection laws, perhaps better than the rest of the country. So that's why this lawsuit is allowed to proceed only in Quebec. And it's a colorful one. It goes all the way back to April 2024 when Tim Hortons originally awarded people a boat and a trailer worth about $55,000. And according to the lawsuit, over 500,000 customers across Canada were emailed that they had won a boat and trailer. But Tim Hortons later sent out a follow-up email saying that the award was sent out in error, blaming it on a technical error, instructing customers to ignore that first email that awarded them the prize in the first place. Now, the Montreal lawyer representing the class action lawsuit argues that clients should be awarded the boat and trailer that they told that they were won because, including damages on top of that as well, says that the Quebec law provides that merchants are responsible for errors and not the customers. And that's what this case potentially hinges on. Tim Hortons, for its part, saying it notified people as quickly as it could for the error that it made, and hence they have no more comments now that this is in front of the courts. But a very interesting case, and clearly a lot of people excited that they had won a boat and a trailer, only to have it taken away. So this will work its way, and it'll be a lot of interest in how it turns out in the Quebec system.
So this is going to get really interesting. Everything that I've read made it sound like these people have a good chance of getting a boat.
How many people in Quebec are included in this class action lawsuit?
They haven't I haven't found the number of how many people in Quebec, but I do know that a little over 500,000 Canadians across Canada got the notice telling them that they won the boat. So even like if you look at population, even if 10% of those, 5% of those even are in Quebec, that's a lot of boats. Is a boat and a trailer worth somewhere between $55,000 and $65,000.
Yeah, it's more boats than any company wants to give anybody. No. So I
like it. It's safe to say, I don't know, 50,000 boats.
Well, I don't know if that's safe to say, but I can't see any judge ruling. Now your sentence is to give 50,000 boats to these people.
To these people in Quebec. Like, that's a lot of boats just to Quebec.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to even get 50,000 boats. That's an unrealistic thing. It's going to be some kind of a financial compensation. Maybe they each get $1,000, you know. Maybe but the law, but the law is...
If the law's in their favor, and I think from what I can tell, this law is set up for... Let's say if the price on, you're in the store and the price on the sign says, you know, this is $3 each, and you get up to the cash register and it's $6 each. The law is written so that it works in the customer's favor. But I think it applies to everything, including in-store contests and stuff.
Right,
and if the law is clear, like I haven't gone through the nitty-gritty of how these laws and regulations in Quebec are written, but based on what I've read, again, it seems like there's a good chance that people are going to be owed something significant, up to and including 50,000 boats.
Well, they're not going to do boats. I know it would be
this gold rush in Quebec where everyone has a new boat.
Yeah. Nobody travels by car anymore. Everybody travels. I only have a job if I can get there by sea. That's the only type of job I have now. But yeah, they're not going to do boats. It'd be great for this show if they did. It would give us more to talk about. But they're not going to do boats. They're going to do some kind of a cash. And I'm not going to say equivalent, but I think it'll be, you know, $5,000 each or whatever the judge deems appropriate in this circumstance. Because the judge will use common sense here, because at the end of the day, none of these people have truly been, you know, wronged.
Well, they're going after the boat and damages as well.
But there are no damages. That's going to push them into borderline ridiculous. Because if you have damages from this, then you're part of the problem.
I just think Tim Hortons deserves a slap in the face here. For one, when this whole thing happened, they didn't even offer a coffee to these people. It was just, that's a mistake. You didn't win. It was a losing coupon or whatever, a losing entry. So the idea that they're going to get something significant, I also I hated the digital roll up the rim versus the physical rolling up of the cup. So I'm kind of okay with Tim's taking a slap across the face for doing that switch as well. And maybe in the future they'll go physical, because there's no room for this kind of nonsense.
Yeah. But as much as I want to see Tim Hortons fall flat on their face over this thing and go bankrupt, having to give out, 100,000 boats, these people on the other end of this, I have no time for. Okay. People who are filing a lawsuit against a company because for 5 minutes they thought that they won a boat, and then they're going to claim damages on this thing. Like, what emotional damages are you going to have from oh, you won a boat? 5 minutes later, oh, sorry, it's a mistake.
I think
my heart had exploded.
We're saying minutes. I think it was a couple hours.
Couple hours, whatever. In the grand scheme of things,
there must be somebody
grains of sand on the beach. These people don't deserve a boat. I hope these people don't get boats. I hope all they win in this is a free coffee and get out of my courtroom kind of thing.
Okay, we'll see.
That's what I hope happens because, again, I'd never side with Tim Hortons, but I don't side with people like this either.
Sure sounds like you are. Let's move on. We'll see.
No, I don't side with. And you know what? I hope the courtroom explodes.
Okay, that's fair. Well, we jumped right into the show with that story. I was too excited to let it wait. Let's hear a listener voicemail. Then we'll get into this week's weird news other than the news of Tim Hortons maybe getting sued. We got a lot of voicemails this week in relation to the puberty problem or the teen or teenage tyranny or whatever word we're going to use to describe the increase in severity of teenage misbehavior. We have a lot of voicemails about it because we discussed it last week, but one voicemail in particular, I think went a little far and maybe was calling for violence. And I was a little concerned when I got it that you and I were maybe giving the wrong impression on how Canadians or people around the world should be dealing with the puberty problem. So I want to air this voicemail from a listener named Lauren who had a very level-headed way of approaching it. Here's Lauren's experience with the puberty problem last week.
It's Lauren calling from Sydney, Nova Scotia. I'm just calling to share a story that just happened to me 2 days ago with respect to the puberty problem. I was going into Walmart and I was walking in and there was some older ladies in front of me. And then there was probably three, probably 12, 13-year-old boys. And they started blowing an air horn at us. And if I've learned anything from the show, it's that we cannot respond or else they're going to get worse. So I just ignored them and kept going, but the ladies in front of me didn't. And I was I was worried for them. I was worried that those teens would just get worse and worse, but thankfully they kept on their merry way and we were all safe besides our eardrums for a few seconds there. And I was going to make a comment about what the teens/youth wear these days. I was just they literally looked like streamers, their clothes, streamers that I see on TikTok. I'm aging myself. Okay, that's all for me. Goodbye.
And then she runs away.
Yeah. What a boomer way to describe it. They look like streamers. I didn't know what she was talking about until she went on to describe on TikTok.
Like someone who streams content, a content creator of some kind, or
maybe they were because they had an air horn. There was probably, she may not have realized, but there was probably someone around the corner filming. But that did resonate with me. I have a 7-year-old. He likes to fix his hair up so it spikes up in the front. I don't know what you call that. When he gets out of the shower or the tub or whatever, he makes the front of his hair stand up and he says, I look like a YouTuber. Yeah, it looks awesome, bud. But that is maybe awesome. That is a style thing now.
Yeah, I guess it is. I can picture what she's talking about. It's a very vivid description that she painted. Okay. And she did the right thing to run away.
Yeah.
And don't you agree, though, when she said in regards to the puberty problem that is still the best name we have because of just how it sounds?
Let me tell you this. I don't want to give spoilers away, but we're going to have to do a mailbag soon because I have a whole bunch of voicemails with new phrases and new ideas and new takes on terminology to describe the misbehaving of teenagers around the world. We'll probably have the next Keep Canada Weird mailbag in the next week or two, and that is when we're going to bury the hatchet on what it's called. For now, we're going to go with the puberty problem.
Yeah, it sounded so good when she said it. She was like, in regards to the puberty problem.
Yeah, I knew exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And new listeners to the show think this is the weirdest podcast.
Good. It's called Keep Canada Weird, then hopefully they're...
Yeah, makes sense. That's right. If the name didn't give it away.
Yeah, it would be awful if it wasn't weird. And they were like, this is the most normal show ever.
Yeah, it's all political commentary.
Unsubscribe, 1 star.
All right, let's take our first break. When we get back, we have a whole bunch of weird Canadian news from the past week to break down. We have a whole bunch of stories about animals, and we have a whole bunch of stories financial in nature. Those are our two kind of segments. animals, financial. Let's take our first break, and when we get back, we'll let the animals run wild. Handsome Aaron Airport, the past week has been a busy week for weird animals in Canada. Do you want to start with pigs or cats?
I want to start and end with cats, but if I had to choose, let's start with cats.
Okay, let's start with cats. This is a good story, and it's an interesting story. I'm not a cat owner, you are, so I'm excited to get your take on this one. Across Canada, a growing number of cats are ditching the windowsills for the wilderness, and it's all made possible by the miracle of a leash. The once rare sight of a cat out for a walk is now becoming surprisingly common. Findus, a BC-based savanna cat who hikes, pedalboards, and strolls through the snow like it's nothing, is just one of the many cats whose owners are hopping on the trend of leashing their cats. Here's the story of why so many Canadian cats are on leashes.
Probably just up from a quick nap, 4-year-old Findus is getting suited up for one of several daily promenades.
Hop, hop.
As he makes his way out of the parking lot on a makeshift backpack, the Savannah, sporting the latest in feline haute couture,
What the hell? Where's a cat?
catches the admiration of passersby. Yes, he knows he's wearing a harness, but doesn't understand what all the fuss is about.
We put a leash on him when he was 3 months old. He didn't even notice.
Now the cat, with his own Instagram account, 515,000 followers and counting, knows the drill. If he wants to go paddleboarding, swimming, or snowpawing, the leash is just part of the deal.
Normally, everybody just smiles and says, how cute it is and how great it is that my cat will never do that. To which I reply, well, you have to try.
Turns out a lot of people are. Vancouver-based RC Pets began making their adventure kitty harness in 2018 and have now sold nearly 500,000.
A lot of people live in less space now, and so being in an apartment is not a lot of space for a cat to roam and to live its true nature. So giving it a harness allows you to bring it just on a picnic that you go with them.
In fact, it's so popular, it's outselling similar products they make for dogs.
It is our top-selling product right now in North America.
Now remember, they are cats, and they will set the course, thank you very much.
They're not like dogs. They're not gonna follow you.
But we're told with a whole lot of patience, slowly introducing the leash, even an old-timer can be taught new tricks.
We're sure happy to have him because he is an amazing adventurer.
It's funny, when I saw that news article come on my radar, I realized, I've been seeing cats on leashes more often over the last probably 2 or 3 years than I think I ever have in my life. So it does seem to be a bit of a trend.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the cat leash has been around for a long time, but I guess recently it's been picking up in popularity. So
you're someone who runs in cat circles. Is this something that's been on your radar?
It's been on my radar for years. I've always thought about it. I've never pulled the trigger because I'm very conflicted about some of the potential consequences to taking an indoor cat outside. I think he'd enjoy it very much. I think he's still afraid of the outside. It's helpful for me because he doesn't try to escape.
Yeah.
If I start taking him out on a leash, he'll start to get very comfortable with the outside, and then I worry about him running outside when I'm coming home. And then I have to try and get him back in all the time. And cats are very difficult to get back inside.
Oh, yeah. Damn right. I can't imagine how you'd ever catch one, too. If it didn't want to come in. With a dog, you'd have a chance. They're so dumb, they'll just come back for a treat. But no, a cat would be long gone.
Mm-hmm.
For people who can't see the video that we just played, it's not so much like a collar with a leash connected to it. It's this kind of cat harness, so it kind of hugs their body, kind of like a jacket or something. So the cat would be safe and secure and not able to get out of it. I like the idea of this. I think if I had a cat, I would like the idea of taking my cat somewhere and just being able to see them do their thing. They're not gonna, I'm sure they're not going to walk like a dog. It would be very difficult to train your cat to walk alongside you the way you could train a dog. But even just they give the example of taking it to a picnic. I'd like the idea of having a 10 or 15 foot long leash and allowing my cat just to kind of roam around as I'm sitting somewhere. I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Keep putting it out in the yard leashed. I like the idea, but it does seem like a little cruel for the cat.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would take it on adventures with me, which I would love to do because so many times when I'm on a hiking trail or something, I always kind of wish that my cat was here. It's just that kind of fear that I have that he'll end up running outside because he's no longer afraid anymore, and then I'm going to lose him. So that's the worry.
It's opening Pandora's box a little bit by getting them desensitized to the idea that maybe outside isn't evil and dangerous. So it is a slippery slope to slide down. But I do like this new era of cat parenting that's being ushered in. As a new dog owner myself, I understand now the joy of experiencing the world with your animal. And I just hope cat lovers can get a little bit of the joy with their animals that I'm getting with my new puppy Penny.
Yeah.
Who is a pain in the ass.
But I don't appreciate you forcing your dog into this conversation when this story is supposed to be all about cats.
That's true. Let's pivot to pigs then. Something we can both disagree on.
Neither of us have a pig. We've been called pigs, I'm sure, many times throughout our lives, but neither of us own a pig.
Neither of us own a pig, and luckily we don't, because if we did, the province of British Columbia may want to kill our pigs. This is a dark story. We've talked about invasive pigs before on this show, this idea of wild pigs. It's come up before. I can't give you an episode number, but I know we broached the topic, but it seems to really be getting out of control in the province of British Columbia, and they're not going to lay down and take it. British Columbia is getting ahead of the animal uprising and is doing it with a propaganda campaign that encourages residents to quite literally squeal if they see pigs running wild. Here's a report coming straight out of the front lines of British Columbia's last stand against invasive pigs.
They're wild by name, even wilder by nature. And now invasive pigs are hogging the spotlight in a new campaign aimed at corralling a crisis.
We're really concerned about feral pigs in British Columbia, or invasive pigs, and those are any pig that's not inside a fence.
The province has a rare chance to act before they become a real problem. What starts with getting the word out. The campaign features pigs in places they shouldn't be, from grocery stores and kitchen cupboards to tractors. The goal, to get the public to squeal on pigs.
You can call us and tell us when you've seen a pig that's not inside a fence, that's in the wrong spot, so that action can be taken. It helps us protect our lands and waters from pretty majorly destructive animals.
This is just a small portion of the damage.
In 2022, a sounder of pigs created a bit of a sty at the Cowichan Golf Club.
They seem to just be multiplying, and it's just become just a pain.
The local mass, part of a much larger invasion.
We argue that they're the worst invasive large mammal on the planet, and I haven't had anybody disagree with me so far.
Ryan Brook has been studying the trend for years now, documenting more than 70,000 wild pig occurrences since the 1980s, the vast majority in the prairies.
For BC, I think we really serve as a cautionary tale of, in all kinds of ways, frankly, don't do what we did. Get ahead of it sooner and avoid the catastrophe that we have underway right now.
On top of the damage they can cause, the pigs also pose a serious risk of carrying and spreading disease like African swine fever, where an outbreak could threaten Canada's pork sector. At this point, experts say there are two options: get ahead of the herd or be trampled by it.
So that piece paints a pretty grim picture of invasive or wild or feral pigs. I did a bit of reading on this, and it is a problem across Canada, but more so in like central and western Canada, not so much here on the East Coast, thank God. I've never seen like a wild pig around here. I think that'd be pretty terrifying. They're big, ugly animals, but they're actually quite athletic. In watching some of these videos, they can run like crazy. They don't just roll around in mud.
It was interesting how they described any pig that's not about to be eaten as invasive.
Yeah, if it's not an offense.
Yeah, and
then it's the kind we want to kill.
Yeah. If it's not about to be killed and eaten, it's invasive. It's a weird way to think about it, but
Yeah, because usually like an invasive species would be like, this Japanese beetle thing is over here and we don't have a predator for it and it's destroying our, whatever, our apple trees or something. This invasive or feral pig, it doesn't seem like it's a different species. It's just, if it's not like owned by a farmer, call us and we'll deal with it. And you know damn well how they're going to deal with it.
yeah, I don't like to think about this as I don't know. I'm someone who eats pig, and so I feel like a hypocrite by saying don't hurt these pigs, but
Put them inside the fence. Don't waste them. Like what they should do is like if you see one of these pigs, let us know and we'll come and we'll put it in the fence. And then there's no
it's
problem.
probably not that easy though. These are feral pigs, right?
Yes, they don't have the like vaccines or whatever. Like maybe could cause trouble.
Yeah, and they're probably going to come in and completely wreck shop if you're going to put them in your fence.
Yeah, and the type of pigs I think that are like in farms and stuff, they're like the big, fat, lazy, roll around in mud kind.
Mhm.
These pigs would probably go inside that fence and kick the shit out of every other pig in there and become the alpha pig.
Yeah. The pigs that are inside the fence you call Wilbur, but the pigs outside the fence you call like Andre.
Okay, I get it. They call it, in that article, you may have heard them say like a sounder of pigs. Have you ever heard that term?
No, I've never heard that. I found that kind of hard
just
to
mean-
imagine in my mind, like sounder.
Yeah, that just means like a pack of pigs.
Yeah, kind
Like
of
a
like a
murder of
murder. Yeah,
crows.
murder of crows.
A
yeah.
sounder of pigs. What a strange term.
Yeah, how did they land on that word? As look at that sounder outside the fence.
Well, it's not that pigs are especially loud, but they do have a fairly distinct sound, like the. So maybe that is where it came from. What is that sound?
What is that pig sound? It's coming from that sounder over there. But there's a bunch of them, so
Yeah.
this is becoming on the same level as the puberty problem. Because what do we call this thing, right?
Yeah, I'm done trying to come up with names. Once we're done with the puberty problem, we're putting it to bed.
Yeah, but there's so many other problems out there.
Yeah, that need.
And they all need names.
They need branding. We should have gone into marketing. If anything, this is a marketing podcast.
Yeah. 90% of the time.
Yeah, the weird Canadian news is what brings us to the table, but the main course is the marketing. Let's take our second and final break. We have some really interesting and weird Canadian financial stories to get to, and one of them involves another ghost story. We'll get to that one after this break. Handsome Aaron Airport, I promise you a duo of weird Canadian financial stories. I'm going to give you another choice here. Do you want to hear a ghost story, or do you want to hear an interesting theory that may change the way Canadians recycle?
Let's start with the ghost story.
Okay, ghost story it is. I'll call this one another ghost story. It's a situation not unfamiliar to Keep Canada Weird listeners. A retired woman in BC is stuck between two worlds. According to the Canadian Revenue Agency, she's dead, but June Miller insists she's very much alive. Here's another ghost story.
When June Miller's husband, Giorgio, passed away last September after 35 years of marriage, the grieving widow was left to file his final tax return.
They said, we won't accept it online, you have to mail it in. I said, that's okay, I can do that. So I put his and mine in the same envelope.
She was flabbergasted when her tax assessment arrived in the mail addressed to the estate of the late June Miller.
I called them and they said, you're deceased. I said, you're talking to me, deceased. What are you saying? You have to change that. And they said, well, there's a process. You have to prove that you're alive.
Miller went to Service Canada in person and provided all her ID. The funeral home that took care of her husband wrote a letter confirming Giorgio is the one that died, not her. And her doctor wrote one too, saying June Miller is very much alive. But in the eyes of the federal government, she's dead.
Miller is newly retired, but she says without her Canada Pension Plan payments, she would have to return to work. And she can't do that because her social insurance number has been deactivated.
There was a point where I laughed, and I'm saying Giorgio's up there and he's laughing going, oh, Juna, look at this mess you got yourself into. Then I was annoyed and angry because I'm talking and I'm repeating and I'm talking and I'm repeating and nobody's getting it at Canada Revenue.
In an email, the CRA said when Canadians are mistakenly declared dead, it is most often an issue with an actual deceased person's tax return, and it can usually be resolved quickly.
So I said, well, I really want you to help me because I don't want to be dead. My goal in life is to be 107, and they took that away a month ago.
The 65-year-old's been told her case is now before a review board.
They're going to review it and deem me alive or dead.
The elephant in the room. Do you think she's alive? Or is this a ghost we're hearing talking?
No, I don't think she is.
No? Canada, or the Canadian Revenue Agency seems pretty convinced about it. They're having a meeting to decide whether she's alive or dead.
Yeah.
She wants to live to 107. They took that away from her last month.
If they deem her alive again, I hope they make her start back at 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's an interesting problem we hear often, and it does feel like a bit of bureaucratic Beetlejuice is what I call it. Someone needs to write, in the movie Beetlejuice, you have like the Book of the Dead or whatever it is, where it's like the guide to the afterlife. It's almost like in Canada, we need something like that to help you navigate this situation, which does not seem unique. We talked about it maybe, I don't know, it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's happening again now with June Miller. In trying to figure out if June Miller made any progress on her issue with the Canadian Revenue Agency, I found a whole separate news like storyline that played out last week with another person completely unrelated to June Miller that's having the same problem. It happens, and I'm sure some of these people are in fact dead.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Canada Revenue Agency never gets it wrong, so I have to side with them on this and believe that she could very well be dead. And until she produces enough evidence that in this day and age, everything can be doctored so easily, that it's hard to believe, even providing the so-called evidence that she has. Mm-hmm. This could be a hologram on the news.
It's all AI.
It could just be AI. It could just be fabricated documents. Mm. This doctor that wrote the letter could just be a friend of hers or a chiropractor. We don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon, an interesting reoccurring phenomenon. A part of me thinks, like, if it happened, it would kind of be exciting to just walk away and start over.
Yeah, that's the benefit. You're off the grid now.
For some people, it's just like a clean slate.
Yeah. Your death has been just work for cash, and under the table and just enjoy your life. You won't pay taxes anymore. You'll have to get a little lot of land in the middle of the woods, deep in the woods.
Yeah.
Build a cabin and just drink some tea.
Yeah, I bet you there are some people who would really enjoy this. But what I would want is to not have it dumped upon me suddenly and unexpectedly. I'd want a bit of notice. Like, tell me, if you could tell me, like, in 6 months, the government's going to just write you off as if you're dead. You got 6 months left as Jordan to do whatever the hell you want, and then you get a clean slate. I guess I don't know what I'd even really do other than rack up a ton of debt.
You would have a credit card. Yeah. Hopefully you've got a high limit on it, and you'd be able to have a little fun with it. Yeah. Super high. Yeah.
And get cash advances, bury that in the woods. The government says I'm dead, and I just like, sure.
Yeah.
Things are pretty bad anyway. So
your debt would probably fall to your children to take care of.
And I'd still be here.
And you'd still be here, and they can hate you to your face.
Yeah, if you got a problem with it, call the CRA.
Yeah. Prove I'm alive.
Yeah, it's a mess. For anyone trapped in that space between life and death financially, I feel for you. This June Miller, in that story we just heard there, one thing I did find in reading about her is she actually started a GoFundMe to try to raise money, because what happened was we heard it just like touched upon in that article. She wasn't getting like her disability checks or her old age pension or something like that because of them deeming her dead. They also like canceled her social insurance number because they thought they think she's dead or believe her to be dead. So she's like, I can't go back to work. I'm not getting my pension anymore. I need money. So she started a GoFundMe to get some money while the government investigated whether or not she was actually alive. And she did get quite a few. I think it was about $1,000 was fundraised.
Yeah. I mean, that she can have some fun on that, I guess. She'll have to pay taxes on it, probably.
If she's alive again, yeah, she's going to owe them 15%.
The government's going to ask, how much money did you make while you were dead?
That's exactly what will happen.
Please claim it.
Let's move away from this supernatural and paranormal story. I told you I had a story that is maybe going to change the way people in Canada recycle. The story we're going to talk about is one of the best ideas I've heard in a long time. We'll call this segment, Would You Rather 10 cents or $1,000? Let me introduce it this way. What if instead of getting 10 cents for returning a can or a bottle to the recycle depot, you had a tiny chance of winning $1,000? Well, a new study out of British Columbia suggests that Canadians may recycle more if the refund system felt a little more like playing the lottery than it does getting a drop in the bucket, 10 cents a can. Listen to this story and tell me if you think this would change the way you recycle.
So I have to bring them in. This is my second time coming.
Vancouver resident Leanne Turner at her local Return It, getting her 10 cents back for each of a couple dozen beverage containers. It's not really about the money, she says, but making sure waste gets in the right place.
It just feels like I'm doing a better job at recycling.
But what if instead of 10 cents per container, you had a small chance to win $1,000?
But if I win $1,000, it'd be nice because I live in Vancouver and that would be just a nice little bonus.
It's the subject of a new study from UBC's psychology department. It argues people prefer a 0.01 chance of winning $1,000 on a container return over the guaranteed 10 cents. So much so, they may end up recycling more.
Often when we're looking at such a small reward like 10 cents, people don't really care about it too much. And we'd rather go for that larger chance at a larger reward. We have more excitement with those things, higher hope. It's kind of just like playing the lottery. You kind of do it for fun a little bit as well.
It's something that's been in place in Norway since 1997, where returning bottles and cans in these machines comes with guaranteed cash back or the choice to take a chance on a far larger prize. Norway has a total beverage container recycling rate of nearly 97%. BC is a recycling leader in Canada at around 80% on average, but the study's authors think probabilistic beverage container refunds could be the missing piece that gets the province nearer to 100%. The UBC team plans to study the idea more to work with BC's Return It system to see how people who collect and redeem lots of containers react to it, but a gamble, they say, may be just worth it to further improve recycling.
I don't know about you, but I love this idea. I think it would work, and I want them to implement it here in Halifax like tomorrow.
Yeah, as long as the choice is there between... And not just, hey, we no longer give you the instant 10 cents a can or a bottle. You're only getting thrown into this lottery to have a very minute chance of winning $1,000.
As long as it's an instantaneous thing, I think almost everybody, would roll the dice with the lottery instead.
But don't you think, I don't know. I know for me, the kind of work that goes into kind of rounding up your bottles and cans and whatever, and then bringing it down and then constantly losing and walking away with nothing. I would get irritated after a little bit.
I would too, but you would always hear stories about people winning. And I think that's what would really sell it. It'd be exciting to try it.
Yeah.
Every month or two, you would hear a story of someone that winning $1,000. I think most people would take the chances with the lottery. I know I would, and I would enjoy it. I think it would be fun.
If I was a serial bottle dropper offer, I would be going for the 10 cents. If I was like every week they're dropping off several bags of bottles, I would be going for the 10 cents because you could do so much more with it than this very
Yeah.
small chance of winning $1,000, which chances are you probably in your lifetime will never win.
Yeah.
Even if you're down there every week.
If you collect and cash in enough bottles, statistically, you're probably better off going with the 10 cents a can. But if you're someone like you or I, just where every couple of weeks you show up with a bag and drop it off, you're probably better to roll the dice because our bottles every couple of weeks, what is like $25 or something. But if you get lucky and you win that 1,000, it's more bottles than we would ever cash in. And even just having this discussion, is this not making recycling fun?
Well, I recycle. I don't need to be paid to recycle. I just simply recycle.
But is this fun? Is this making it funner?
I guess I'm not a gambler, so I don't really care about these types of games.
You think recycling's a game?
I think this is a game. I think they're playing mind games with us is what they're doing.
They absolutely are. This is like a psychological experiment that can we trick people into recycling more by gamifying it or making it akin to gambling?
And they're probably saving money too on the payouts because they're only giving out $1,000 per whatever. And that's less people taking the 10-cent payout per bottle or can. So I think that's probably less money that they're paying out for people to return their recyclables.
Possibly. If it is just like a lotto machine, it could end up costing the recycling depot a lot more if more people are winning than what they would have statistically forecast. And that's not a good thing because it may cost more money on the recycling system. But then at the other hand, if the people dropping off their bottles are getting screwed by not winning, that's not fair either. I guess you'd have to just get a lotto commission to run it because they would have worked all this stuff out with a typical lottery.
Yeah. You would have to get the big wigs and the professionals involved to structure the entire thing, the people who know what they're doing. But again, I don't care what they do as long as the choice is always there for you to take the 10 cents per bottle. Because there are people who that's a big part of their income is going around and collecting bottles and cans and bringing them in for the refund.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I wouldn't want to see that ever go away.
In some places, they call them binners. Those are the people who go through the bin and take the bottles. I've never heard that term.
No, I've never heard that either. That sounds like a accurate term, I guess.
It's you can make good money though. I know my grandfather was very frugal and he had in his basement he had garbage bags of bottles that he'd save up and then he'd bring them and drop them all off, and I'd often go with him and he'd agree to split the money with me if I went. But my granddad, he grew up with his family owned and ran a scrapyard, so he was very into collecting things and hoarding them until they're worth something. We used to go on these long walks and he was always looking in the curb and the gutter or whatever just for little pieces of metal, and whatever he found he could pick it up and look at it and he'd know if it was aluminum or copper or whatever, and he would put it in his pocket, and when he got home and he sorted all that stuff out. And it was just from growing up on a scrapyard, you just learn to do that, I guess. But all this to say, I think it's interesting that they're looking at creative ways to encourage people to recycle. And I think they should apply that same kind of adventurous spirit to other things in society that we need to do. When I came upon this story, I thought, good for them. I like this.
Yeah, it's trying something different to get people to recycle more.
Yeah. And I think it'll work. I think we're about at the end of this. We've been through a lot tonight. We've heard about animals. We heard about Tim Hortons maybe collapsing. We've touched on teen tyranny. We had these financial crimes. Is there anything else we got to get into tonight?
Let's just say goodbye.
Can I ask you one question, though, before we do?
Mm-hmm.
Will you do a Keep Canada Weird mailbag with me within the next 10 to 14 days?
I'd do one even sooner than that if you wanted to.
Yeah, we will, because our inbox is getting out of control and there are a lot of good suggestions on the puberty problem branding, so I'm excited to get to it. I'll get started working on that. Let's get out of here. Handsome Air and Airport. Until next time.
Jordan Bus Stop, Backhoe Bonaparte. Until next time.
I know you poo-pooed the idea, but I think Tim Hortons is about to buy about 50,000 people in Quebec a boat. And it's really going to get interesting there.
You know, Jordan, until next time, I wouldn't want a boat from Tim Hortons because if their boats are anything like their coffee, it's just going to leak.
That's a good point. Tim Hortons cups do leak like crazy. Yeah, you're onto something there. I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird. If you've got a news story from your area that you'd like to share with us, or have any thoughts or theories or opinions on anything we discussed tonight, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us by using the voice recorder that can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. And on that topic, I want to give a big thank you to this episode's correspondents. If your voice message was aired tonight, you can email me your address. My email is nighttimepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get a Keep Canada Weird badge and swag pack sent out to you. I just ask that you wear the badge proudly and responsibly. Next, a big thanks goes out to Aaron for another great night, Nicole for the intro and outro voiceovers, and Monty Data for the outro version of O Canada. And then, of course, a sincere and massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening. Your support makes this show possible. And if you'd like to support the show even more, please consider a subscription to the premium feed, which can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. The premium feed costs just a couple dollars a month, but that money will fund the creation of new episodes of the show, and it'll give you those episodes 2 days early, ad-free, and access to a back catalog of episodes. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media. That helps a lot too, and it's free. Your support is very much appreciated. So with all that said, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and together, let's keep Canada weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere. Good night.
Do you have a fan, Aaron?
Yeah, it's in my bedroom. I'm just worried about the sound of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had to stand up and walk around because I'm sweating so much sitting down in this chair that.
Just take your pants off.
I have. I'm only in my underwear.
Okay, I believe you.
I started with no pants.
Okay. Oh God.
No, underwear.
Okay. Let's get into it here. Handsome Aaron Airport, the past week has been a busy week for weird animals in Canada. Do you want to start with pigs?
And keep Canada weird. Please keep Canada weird.